Was mich dann stört, ist, wir dann die Berichte
Guys,
durch über die langen.
Please mute yourself. Otherwise, we'll get crazy here today.
And maybe pass the host back to me.
Right now, or
You don't have to. It looks like you're recording, so, but want the host to do the poll.
You can run the poll in the chat. Hello from Baden. Hello. And we have some people from Nyon. Super. So hello, warm welcome everyone once again. We have 70 people, almost 70 people. Now it's 70 on the call today. So please go on mute button. It will definitely help us to communicate smoothly and you will get the excellent quality of sound. So a warm welcome from my side. My name is Agata Czopek. I'm the chapter president, and I would like to welcome you all. We have a great crowd today, thanks to the virtual form of the event. But I'm also sure that thanks to a very unique speaker that we're gonna have today. So the chapter is hosting this event for you. Warm welcome from Switzerland. I know that we have people from other countries. We're gonna run a poll to find out where you are. And it's a unique situation. It used to be the way that the chapter was organizing the events for the community. So we as a Switzerland chapter was organizing events in the regions in Switzerland, but now we are opening to other chapters that are with us today. So a few words about Switzerland itself. We have almost 1,700 members in Switzerland. We are one chapter in the country, which is also quite unique. In all the neighboring countries, there are more chapters in per country. We are the one in Switzerland. We have a great group of volunteers, and also a big thank you for them. They've organized this event for you, and they are the one that made this happen. We do have a very interesting programs for our chapter members, and if you are even not a Switzerland chapter member, you can also join us, of course, as it is it's possible for the PMI members. We have a group of great mentors, and we are running a mentoring program. We have a great social good team that's running workshops for non-for-profit organizations like United Nations, like workshops for students for the universities, either in Lausanne or in Zurich. Please go on mute. Please. I know that we are mostly at home. Thank you. And in general, it used to be the situation that we are running the face-to-face events, but of course we are where we are, and that is why we are running this unique workshop today for you in a totally virtual form with the speaker that's joining us from where, Mark? Where are you now? Are you in the States or you're in Canada?
I'm in Calgary, Canada.
In Calgary, Canada. Excellent. So it's an evening time for us in Switzerland and for Europe. I guess it's a half day for you, Mark.
Yes,
so
11.
Yeah, 11.
In the morning. Yeah.
11 in the morning. Guys, I was wondering how much we have in common, Mark. I think I've never met you, although I joined quite a lot of PMI events, and I definitely know people who are part of the leadership team of Project Management Institute. I only figure out that we were both speaking at the conference in Dubai, the Project Management Forum in Dubai, but I think we missed 1 year, so I think we're not there at the same time. And yeah, Let's move forward. What do we have next? Nicola? If you could move our beautiful slides. No, it's not working. Super. So in general, I wanted to say also big thank you to our chapter sponsors. We have a PwC as a platinum sponsor. We have Microsoft that's supporting us, and also sponsors like ProPMP, STS, and Altran. You can find more information about our sponsors on our website and via our website. They are supporting us and making our activities go nicely and smoothly. Cool. What is next, Nicola? If you could move the... Yeah, we are fighting a little bit. And exactly the big thank you to the organizer team. So big thank you to Adi, big thank you to Philip, big thank you to Nicola, and for putting that all together, for muting the audience when they are not muting themselves, and helping us to run that. During the session, please, you all will be muted. If you're not muted, we will try to mute you from our side just to try to manage the quality of sound. Please use the chat to post your questions. We will be monitoring all the questions. We'll be checking on that. It will be much easier to... Thank you. And the session is recorded and will be published will be published on the PMI Switzerland YouTube channel. So if you cannot make it full, or you can also share the information with others. And this is a very unique event. I don't think we ever had the chance to have the PMI representative on site. We did have Sunil in February, and that was on the face-to-face meeting, but Mark is for the first time with us, and he is the co-creator of Disciplined Agile toolkit. So he is really the one. If you have any questions, if you want to know how it all started and how it all merged, so how PMI became together with Disciplined Agile, Mark is definitely the person that you can turn to. Nicola, over to you. Anything else you want to add? Anything else that our speakers should know and our audience should know?
Thank you, Agatha, very much. After your brief introduction, I think there is anything to add. So the topic of Disciplined Agile is, I'm sure, interesting for all of us, and a number of participants testifies about that. When it comes to choice of which Agile approach, then we might all had some dilemmas in the past. Fortunately, Mark Lyons, the VP of Disciplined Agile, is now with us, and there is no better person to explain us. So without any ado, Mark, your turn.
Thank you very much, Nicola and Agata. So let's get started here. I'm going to try to share my screen. Are we seeing PowerPoint? Anybody want to tell me you can see PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So let's see if I can, now I'm host, if I can launch a poll here to get us started. Let me know where are we from today? I want to get to know the audience a bit better here. Right. Come on, everybody. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I have 12 years of experience, and I have been project manager for the last 7 years. And we were using waterfall, but now we are just switched to the agile methodology. And I'm just preparing for certification. That's my little background. Actually, I'm from the IT industry. Okay, and the software engineering, we are making software for ERP, HRMS, and different stuff. So background is from IT.
Okay. Oh, I see. You're looking at the wrong, or I'm displaying the wrong screen. I'm going to close the poll for now, though. Looks like not everybody's answered. Here's what we have. Waiting for participants to submit responses and see if I can change screens.
Yeah, it might come if you have two screens plugged in. Sometimes the WebEx is playing tricks and displaying two.
Let me just see if I can fix that.
Yeah,
Video.
Top, you can swap displays.
Ah, where is that though? Manage panels, maybe.
It would be at the top left corner of your screen. Swap display.
Ah, thank you. Look at that. All right, does everybody see the results of the poll?
We see your first slide.
Do you see the results of the poll? Is that showing? No, I have to share. Okay.
we see.
See the results of the poll. All right, so we've got about 49% from Switzerland, and then we have Germany, Serbia, and US. All right. Off we go. You can properly now? Okay, so I'm going to talk about the DA toolkit. Apologize for the, I don't use WebEx very much myself. I'm more of a Zoom person, but PMI does use WebEx, so I'm trying to figure this out myself as well. So thank you for being here. First of all, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Scott Ambler, the creators of Disciplined Agile. We're very excited to be part of PMI. And by the way, I can hear some other people who are not on mute. I'm going to see if I can actually mute you all. There. I'm going to unmute Agata if I can, in case there's anything that she wants to let me know. Okay.
It's okay. I can unmute myself.
Okay.
It works.
All right. So anyway, we're very excited to be part of PMI. We've long respected PMI as the place to go in the world for world-class guidance and certification on traditional project management. I would say to you that on the Disciplined Agile side, Scott and I have always felt kind of the equivalent on the Agile side. We're agnostic. We're not married to any one particular method or framework. We do have a credible, worthwhile certification program. Unlike a lot of certification programs out there where there's a couple of days of education, no test required, we think that that is really actually hurting our industry, because then we trust people with mission critical projects based on 2 days of education. Really not fair. We certainly have a higher standard when we trust people with a large initiative and we use traditional project management. We expect them to be well educated, be PMPs, etc. Why don't we have the same standard on the Agile side? So that's when Scott and I created the certification program for Disciplined Agile. We certainly wanted to raise the bar, if you will, from that perspective. So we now are excited that PMI has the best of both worlds. We've long been recognized by Gartner as essentially the #2 in terms of mind share or market share, #2 enterprise agile approach out there. And the #1 would be SAFe. But the difference between us and everybody else is that whereas SAFe and Scrum and Kanban are defined methodologies or approaches, and often cases very prescriptive, we're not like that. What we are, think of us as if SAFe is a recipe, Disciplined Agile is the ingredients in the pantry that make that recipe. That's probably a good way to think about the difference between Disciplined Agile and a SAFe or a Scrum. Those are recipes, we are ingredients. And when you do Scrum, you pick a few ingredients off the shelf for your process. SAFe, you pick up more ingredients, different kinds of ingredients, because SAFe, if you're not familiar with SAFe, it stands for Scaled Agile Framework. It's for large scale Agile. You pick up different kinds of ingredients for that kind of approach. What we are is we're a hybrid toolkit that is a huge pantry of all the different approaches out there. So what you see here is people ask us, are we going to put the PMBOK guide and DA body of knowledge together into one? The answer is no, because they have different approaches, different purposes. Yeah. Yes, there's more agile and lean content in the new PMBOK guide, certainly, but it's still a small fraction of all the agile techniques that are available to you. But it's good to have some agile ideas inside traditional project management, because even on a traditional, say you're building a bridge or pipeline or a building, you're probably going to use a standard work breakdown structure and other guidance from the PMBOK guide. But maybe you're going to sprinkle in some agile ideas, like having a daily stand-up meeting of 15 minutes to get your day started, which comes from the agile world. This is where you have kind of a Venn diagram, an overlap of the guidance between the two bodies of knowledge. So traditional project management for sort of repeatable, proven types of projects where you can execute the work breakdown structure with little risk, always going to be a place for traditional project management. By the way, don't let anybody tell you different. There's a lot of rhetoric out there around no projects, let's do product mentality. You know what, for software development, that's a very valid argument, but for traditional projects, no. There will always be projects. I give an example about, we just came out with a DA Basics online course offering. Well, you know what? We had a launch plan for that. How are we going to communicate it to the world and to the chapters? Do we need a marketing plan? What is the pricing? What is the timing of building the thing? That is a project. And when it gets released, it ends, right? So people who say we don't have projects anymore, really, they're just a bit naive. Certainly a product approach where you're building software product, you go from release to release, that's a different approach than project. So the world needs both. The last thing I'll say about the slide is part of the Disciplined Agile is we realize that you need governance and risk management in agile projects, just like you would traditional. And do you know that in the agile world, nobody talks about governance, nobody talks about risk management, which is kind of silly. You still need to be able to provide a status of the health of the project to the sponsors of your effort on a regular basis. That's governance. And a lot of the agile people are kind of in a state of denial that we're different, leave us alone, you don't understand. And for us, you know, we don't have patience for that. That's not disciplined agile. So there's a really nice marriage between the two approaches. Now, so I'm gonna try this again to see if I can do a poll, a different poll. And let's see if I can bring it up here. Question is, I can do this. I think I'm going to give up. Okay. All right, I can't seem to get this poll working. Let me try.
Just put the people can give the answers in the chat. We can count it.
Yeah, but I have like it's weird. I'm clicking on the question and it doesn't let me do it. A second.
Oh, I see it.
In fact, all the questions came on the first time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but so you're seeing the questions. How come I can't ask the question?
We could see the 3 questions. So if your second question is, do you have knowledge or experience of Disciplined Agile? We could answer on the first time.
Oh, I see. Yes, I'm such a newbie, such a rookie. So there we go. We got the answers right there. I think that you can all see them. That a lot of people have no knowledge or experience with Disciplined Agile, which is good. Which is right here. So I'm just going to move on. The presentation, lots to cover. So what is Disciplined Agile? It's a toolkit that enables us to make better decisions inside our organizations about our way of working. You actually hear that phrase out there a lot these days, way of working and choosing our way of working. So in many ways, Disciplined Agile is actually ahead of that curve. It's a very popular saying these days. this is what the toolkit allows us to do is customize our way of working. And when you look at what we've done, what you see here is Scott on the left-hand side, myself, and Al Shalloway. If you don't know Al's company, Net Objectives, created this body of knowledge called Flex. And what Flex is about is improving your approach to Agile at scale. So lots, say 100, 200 people building an Agile project. They might choose to use this SAFE framework. And Al used to teach it. And he discovered, and Al's very famous, he's written lots of books, has a large following, and said, you know what, SAFE is great, but it can be better. So he came up with this Flex content that helps you be more effective when you choose to use something like SAFE. So PMI bought Flex, is now part of our Agile offering. And we're in the process right now of integrating Al's Flex content with the Disciplined Agile content from Scott and I. And what you see here is Agile is full of literally hundreds of different kinds of practices. Think of these as the ingredients in your pantry. And when you assemble those practices, this is how you end up with a method. This is how you end up with a framework. And frameworks and methods will come and go. It seems like every few years, there's a new fancy Agile method that people are talking about. And you know what, though? Underneath the covers, it's really the same kinds of practices, just assembled in a different order. But maybe there's a few new ones. And what I would suggest to you is if you take the time to learn what the practices are, as methods come and go, you'll always be positioned to use them appropriately because you make that investment in learning the ingredients in the pantry. That's what we are. So we're an umbrella over all of Agile. We're agnostic. So how can it help us? I'm going to go through 3 ways in which DA can help us. It can help better optimize your Agile teams. So making your teams more effective with Agile, this is how DA can help us. And I will tell you about that. Number 2 is that the DA toolkit also enables you to extend agility beyond teams to the entire organization. So one thing we find, I've been doing Agile for 25 years, since the mid-90s, to be honest with you, when Scrum first came out. And even before that, before we even called it Agile. And what we have seen over the years is that why are we even still talking about this? Why are people still saying Agile is good or bad? And why isn't everybody effective with it if it's so good? One of the reasons is because you might have really good Agile teams like Scrum teams, but the rest of the organization might not be Agile. So for instance, your PMO might expect you to create a massive 30-page business case before they fund a 3-month project. Well, clearly if it takes you a month to do the business case to do a 3-month project, then maybe we're not really very Agile. There are ways to do Agile business cases. And it's not the PMO's fault that they ask you for the 30-pager, it's just that they don't know any different. So PMOs, finance, marketing, governance, enterprise architecture, these other supporting areas that you see in a slide like this are really important for our enterprise, but often they get in the way of our agility. They're impediments rather than enablers. You know what the nice thing is, though? There are Agile ways to do these other things. And we've been doing it for years in DA, and we go in, and I tell the story about going into a finance department and convincing them to get rid of the timesheets. And I told them why they can get better information than they get from their timesheets, more accurate with far less work. So what they did is they abolished timesheets, and they adopted this Agile practice for doing their CapEx, OpEx that did not require timesheets anymore. So there's a small example of how we can spread agility throughout the organization. And this is where this is for us, this is what true business agility is. And DA can help you with that. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. And then finally, the DA toolkit, specifically with the content from Flex, can help us to be Agile in large scale, or more effective with Agile in large scale situations. As an example, you may have heard a story about John Deere making software for tractors where they had 300 developers and they wanted to be Agile. But Agile tells us we should have small teams, like 9 or less people. So what did? They decomposed them into sets of teams, use something called SAFE, and that's how they deliver Agile. That's how they use 300 programmers to build one piece of software. And so what we would say is if you're using SAFE, great, because it fits that particular pattern, that recipe, that solves that problem. But you can use the flex content from DA to actually streamline things and make that even more effective. So those are the 3 value propositions of DA. So let's take a deeper dive into the content. We structured the content into flow, and we have life cycles to depict that. We talk about people and different types of structures of teams. We don't just have one structure, we have different types of structures, roles and responsibilities. And then the advice, the strategies are organized into practices, and those practices are organized into things called goal diagrams. So I'll show you an example. And overall, all of this stuff, we have that agile mindset that we need in order to be effective with all these things. I'm going to take you through a few of these things. First of all, in terms of the agile mindset, in DA, we have these principles, and I'm not going to read these all, don't have time to go through each of these, but these are the foundational principles of why DA is so great. You know, we're agnostic, we're pragmatic, we're not purist. We believe that choice is good. For instance, Scrum is good in some situations, Safe is good in some situations, Lean is good in some situations. Traditional serial waterfall is also good in some situations, or maybe a hybrid. The choice is good, and I feel sorry for organizations that say, we're a Scrum shop, so everything is Scrum. Because in some situations, Scrum is, in fact, most situations, Scrum is very, very good, but in many situations, it's actually very, very bad. So it's good to have choice, and that's what we have in DA. With these principles, we promise to fulfill these promises. So provide psychological safety, embrace diversity, which makes us stronger. What else? Make all work visible. I'm not going to read all these, but you get the idea. And then we follow certain guidelines to maybe apply design thinking. I love the one, create effective environments that foster joy. I find that if you do Agile right, everybody's happier. The teams are happier, the management's happier, the executives are happier, the business, the customers, everybody's happier. HR, finance, they're happier too. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this, because I've seen the difference that DA can make in organizations. We spend so much time at work. So if we can make our work more interesting and more effective and deliver better value quicker, then that's a win-win. So I'm going to take a quick dive into each one of these things. In terms of flow, we know that teams should be able to choose an appropriate life cycle, think recipe, that makes sense for the situation. This is one of the reasons a company like Barclays has 1,200 Disciplined Agile teams around the world. Now, they might not self-identify as Disciplined Agile. They might say we're Scrum or we're Safe or whatever, or we're Spotify. But what they really have done is they've taken the stuff from Disciplined Agile and then customizes it for them. And that's why Barclays was so successful with spreading DA around the world, because they gave the teams the flexibility to pick the life cycle that makes sense for the situation. And I'm going to show you just one. We don't have time to go through each of the ones I just showed you on the previous slide, but this is an example of the Agile life cycle, which is based upon Scrum. I won't go through all the details, but at the center of it, if you've seen Scrum before, where it has iterations or what Scrum calls sprints, that's what you see here in the middle of the diagram is how Scrum works. Every couple of weeks, I take a few features or what I call stories, I build them, I test them, I demonstrate them, and then I go on to the next iteration or sprint. But Scrum, you need to understand, is described by 19 pages, 19 pages is their body of knowledge, the Scrum guide. And clearly what we do is more complex than that. And that's okay. It's 19 pages of gold, but we're going to need to go out and do other things. And this is why we're a more robust version of Agile and Scrum. The reason we don't call this the Scrum lifecycle, we call it the Agile lifecycle, is because it's more than just Scrum. It could be some technical practices from something called extreme programming. It could be some Agile requirements modeling practices from Scott's work on Agile modeling. So it's more than just Scrum, but at the heart of it, it is based on Scrum. It has iterations or sprints. So just wanted to show you an example of that. In terms of people, a classic Agile team will have these roles, a team lead, or you might call it a Scrum Master, team members. So we don't break things down into BAs or testers. Those are team members. We all work together to get the job done. Product owner comes from Scrum. They set the priorities of what we're going to build in what order. They clarify requirements for us. Architecture owner is something unique to Disciplined Agile. Think of it as the technical lead on the team, the person who's responsible for facilitating good technical behavior. It's a good way of describing it. But if you have to do code reviews or whatever, the architecture owner would make sure that the team follows your enterprise architecture guidelines. You might have different roles, but this is just an example of the key roles within DA. And in terms of team lead, you can call team lead whatever you want. It's a meta role. It could be a project manager, a lead scrum master, a manager. It's just kind of a placeholder, if you will. So these are not job descriptions, they're roles. I'm going to jump into practices now. Now, this diagram here, I like to call it the square onion. It has multiple layers. It's kind of like a square. And at the bottom of it, everything we do, we need to have that lean, that agile and lean mindset. So we've got content around the principles, promises, the guidelines that I just showed you, as well as other sort of agile and lean foundational material. And now as you go up into the onion, the Disciplined Agile DevOps layer, think of this as, you see the hex on the second from the bottom row called Disciplined Agile Delivery. This is the guidance that we have for individual teams if they're in an IT project, if they're delivering some kind of IT solution. That's where the life cycles come in. And then you can see that the DevOps idea, we have to worry about security and data management and how are we going to release this and support it, and how are we going to run IT operations in an agile way. So that whole layer behind each of those hexes, which we call process blades, by the way, each of those process blades behind them are where all the content lives. All these great ideas about different ways of doing things, choose your way of working, they live behind these hexes. Now, as we go higher up into the onion, you'll see that to be effective, as I mentioned earlier, we need to be agile in these other areas of your business, the other areas of your organization. So we have strategies behind each of these to help you be more effective. And if you go right to the top, third from the right, you see finance. I talked about getting rid of timesheets. So this is where you can find the agile guidance to help you be more effective as an organization. For us, this is what business agility is you may start with IT initiatives. You need to bubble up into the organization to make the rest of the organization agile as well. So behind each of these hexes, what you see is behind Disciplined Agile Delivery specifically, you see these 21 goals. And regardless of whether you're implementing a package like an SAP solution, or you're building something from scratch, or you're extending a COBOL system, whatever you're doing, you're going to have these common goals. And we break them up into different sections: inception, construction, and transition. By the way, you don't have to have those. You don't have to have an inception. You don't have to have a construction or transition. But if you're going to spend some time up front planning your project before you get to actually building it, we have a phase for that, and it's called inception. If you don't need it, because you just roll from release to release, then don't use an inception. But if you need it, it's there for you. And behind each of these goals that you see here, there is a goal diagram. I'm going to show you an example of one. Explore scope. I need to understand what my scope is. And behind that goal is a goal diagram, an example of one called Explore Scope. Agile tells us to do requirements with something called the user story. And the user story is just a sentence or two to describe a feature, and then a number of sentences to describe how we test it. But you know what? That's fine if you're building a simple website. If you're building something complex, like maybe a missile or a ventilator, well, this is really critical software. So we need to make sure we don't mess things up. And then you're going to need much more than a user story. So what you see here is the most common requirements modeling techniques. Some of them are textural, some of them are diagrammatic. And what this diagram helps you is to think of these are the recipes, these are the ingredients in the pantry, related to requirements or scope. So if a lot of times people don't have the education, I've been doing this for a long, long time, so I know what all these things are, but many people don't. And as a result, they're not as effective as they can be because they don't understand what's available to them. It's like having saffron in your pantry, but not having no idea what it is or where it's good. So that's what we try to do, is teach you what these things are and help you to understand where they might help you be more effective. As an example, if you want to explore the usage in terms of requirements of how people are actually going to use your solution, maybe you're doing a mobile app or something, then there's some great ideas inside here besides user stories. And by the way, the ones that are bolded italicized means they're good default choices. If you're going to do one of them in this category, then that's probably a good one to start with. If you see an arrow beside it, it means that generally speaking, the choices at the top of the list are better options than the choices at the bottom. So this is giving you real good advice on picking strategies that make sense for you. And to support that, we've got text, and this is in the book. So if my video is still on, then this is our body of knowledge in Disciplined Agile. You know, it's a 400-page book. It's a significant body of knowledge. We don't apologize for that because there's lots of stuff that we do on a daily basis, lots of ideas in that pantry that you probably never heard of before. So using the goal diagrams, you can find these tables, and we provide definitions of what these things are, references where you can learn more about it, and then trade-offs to say when this might be a good idea or that bad idea. So personas is the third one from the top in the circle list on the left. Well, you can see on the right-hand side, there's a definition of a persona, and it tells you where personas might be useful for you. Time check here, see how I'm doing. I got to pick up the pace a bit. So we also have governance is baked, what I like to say is baked into Disciplined Agile. And what this means is that, as I said, most Agile methods don't talk about governance. They pretend it's not important. And of course it is. So what we provide you with is, think of it as like a starter set of milestones on your project where you might want to have a conversation with your stakeholders to let them know how your Agile project is going. You don't have to use these, but it's a starter set. Just like everything, choice is good, context counts. A lot of people like to use this out of the box because and where these milestones occur are typically on the iteration or sprint boundaries. When you do your demos, that's when, you know, you've done a demo, you've shown what you've done, and now you say, oh, by the way, this coincides with a continued viability milestone. We said we would look at the project after 3 months, decide how we're doing. You know, are you on track, on schedule, on budget? Are risks mitigated? Are we delivering value? Do we want, and by the way, can I have some more money? So that's an example of where you might want to use that milestone. So milestones are built into Disciplined Agile. So now what I've done is very quickly, and I apologize for the speed, but there's so much to cover here, is that what I've done is sort of given you an overview of how the content is structured and where to find it. And we have courses, the book, to help you understand more about that. Now, let's assume that you've made the investment in learning what the recipes are and what your pantry looks like, what those different ingredients are from the Agile toolkit that you might want to use. Now that you have a basic understanding, and by the way, I for my birthday, my wife gave me pilot ground school lessons. So I'm so excited. I'm going to be a pilot. And guess what? I'm doing a lot of studying right now. I'm learning what those ingredients are. I'm learning about different kinds of engine oil and what carburetors do and all these kinds of things before they'll let me get in there. So it's the same kind of idea. We need to make an investment in learning what's in that pantry if we're really going to be effective. And so now that you've done that, let's talk about the importance of choosing the way of working and how it's done. Well, first of all, an observation is that sticking to a prescriptive, non-evolving way of working often leads us to stagnation and limited benefits. We see this a lot. And we have some evidence behind this. There is some research that shows that if I'm adopting a new method like Scrum, you would expect to have an initial learning curve and maybe the productivity goes down initially. That makes sense as you learn. And then things should get better. And otherwise, why are we doing it? So you typically would get some improvement from implementing something like Scrum. But we often see that after you've done everything that's in that 19-page body of knowledge, the Scrum guide, teams don't seem to improve anymore. And they're really under, what's the word? They're not meeting their potential. And Don Reifer is a research analyst that has surveyed 1,500 plus teams. And his research showed him that something like Scrum might get you an improvement of 7 to 12%. A scaling framework might get you a 3 to 5% improvement. And I would say to you, that's kind of underwhelming. The investment that we make in training and consulting and coaching, I would hope we can do better than that. And you got to believe that the companies that we admire, like Spotify, Google, Amazon, certainly get better improvements than what you see in this diagram. So how do they do it? How do we do better? Well, first of all, successful organizations take responsibility for evolving during agility. Success doesn't come from adopting a prescriptive method or framework such as Scrum or SAFe. It may be a great start. For true business agility, we need to choose our agile way of working, a bespoke agile, optimizing for our unique situation. Now, I'm just going to take a time check for a second to make sure that my schedule is appropriate. Do we still have an hour and 20, or sorry, 50 minutes? You tell me? Or do we have 20 minutes? How much time do I have?
20 minutes.
And then Q&A, or 20 minutes including Q&A?
20 minutes and Q&A.
Okay, good. So I might steal a little bit of the Q&A because, well, we'll see. I might get through in 20 minutes. I probably will, actually. All right, I'll continue. So this, I need to know how many stories to tell to make sure I manage my time properly, right? And the reason I asked right at this point is that this slide is so important for you to understand that Scrum is amazing and SAFe is amazing in certain situations, but not all. And by copying some method or framework that you read about in a book or somebody, some consultant teaches you on, that is going to severely limit your potential. There are great places to start, but we have to recognize that's not the destination. People sometimes talk about Spotify, the Swedish online music company, and they've done some great things over the years, and there's some great YouTube videos out there about how they've done Agile. But please, 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 don't copy and paste Spotify into your organization and say, yeah, I'm Agile now. A few things you need to understand. One is, that's the way Spotify did Agile 7 years ago. And you talk to anybody that works at Spotify, they do things completely differently now, okay? So that was a point in time. And the second thing is, that's a bespoke Agile for a Swedish online music company. So unless that's you shouldn't be doing that. Now you can copy some of their ideas, but then understand that that's just a starting point for getting better. In fact, John Smart from Barclays talks about these recipes as a jumping off point into exploring how different parts of Barclays want to do Agile. So the beauty of Spotify is not how they do Agile. The beauty is they knew how to customize an Agile that makes sense for them. And that's what this is the most important point about this presentation, that's what you should learn to do as well. And the DA toolkit can help you do that. And I'll tell you why. The continuous improvement, the classic continuous improvement loop. If you're in a retrospective at the end of a sprint and you're talking about ways that you did well and maybe ways that you didn't do well, how can we improve? Well, you identify a problem, then you say, what are my solutions? You try a solution as what we call a process experiment. We assess how effective it is. We do what works and we abandon what doesn't. We share our learnings and go round and round, often called the Kaizen loop of continuous improvement. And this is beautiful. But you know what? What happens if you don't know you have a small pantry of ingredients. You don't understand all the different ways that you can improve your way of working. It's going to severely limit how much better you can get. So some process experiments fail. You learn something, but it doesn't get you closer to your goal. Agile has this phrase called failing fast, and I get it. It means that let's try something early in the project, first or second sprint, and if it doesn't work, well, we learn and we get better. And so that's great. But you know what? Failing fast takes time, and it's expensive. And why flounder around where there are being similar situations to what you face? I know you're unique, but there are similarities about what you do. It's being done elsewhere. So what we say is, if you could get better at identifying potential solutions, then we will succeed and improve faster. And you can do this if you have a coach. And I believe having an Agile coach as a consultant or internal coach definitely is an accelerator along this path, because they bring so much experience. But they are expensive and they're hard to find. Typically, there's not enough of them. I worked at a company that had one coach for 26 teams. So a lot of times teams needed help and they just couldn't get it. We can do this if we have access to a process knowledge base like the DA toolkit. So think of this. Instead of relying on one person to understand what's all the strategies are, what if everybody in the team took the training? What if everybody understood what was in this book? Now you've got a room full of coaches that collectively can say, hey, what about personas? Maybe we should try one of those. Remember we learned about those? And everybody goes, oh yeah, then let's try that, because that probably makes sense in this situation. That's how you become more effective as a team. All right, so by the way, so at the bottom right of the slide, you see what we call this guided continuous improvement. So you don't have to invent all this stuff from scratch. And what this does is this takes a continuous improvement curve and accelerates it so you can improve much quicker. Now, you've seen this slide before. And one of the key messages to take home from this is that you don't need to start from scratch. Whatever you're currently doing, you're probably doing some awesome things. Whether you're brand new at Agile or whether you've been doing Agile for 5 or 10 years or more, you can get better. So using the DA toolkit and guided continuous improvement, what we say is start where you are, do the best that you can in your situation, and always strive to get better. So this is a beautiful thing, is that DA is not disruptive. You do not need to stop what you're doing. You can layer in the ideas from DA onto what you're currently doing, and you're going to resume your continuous improvement. I was talking to a large aerospace company that I won't mention recently, and they do a lot of safe, large scale Agile, but they admit they kind of hit the wall. Some teams are doing great, some teams are not, they're doing kind of, and some teams are really not doing well at all. So they know that their teams actually aren't trained enough, that they need more, they need to understand more. Where do you go? You have to get 15 different certifications, or can you go to one place where all the practices have been brought together into one body of knowledge? I think the answer should be fairly obvious, you know, where I'm coming from on that. So what I've talked about is the importance of upskilling your teams to understand what's in that pantry. We make better decisions, what works in what situations. Number 2 is spread a business agility throughout the organization up into the areas that support your Agile teams. And by the way, a certified Disciplined Agile coach has been trained how to do that, how to have a conversation with finance to tell them the story about timesheets, how to have a discussion with the PMOs, with enterprise architecture to help them be more agile. That is in our Disciplined Agile coaching certification. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So the third value proposition is Agile at scale. And this is part of the square onion you saw before, and this particular 2 circles is all the different kinds of things we need to think about and work with when we're doing things at large scale programs, potentially using an Agile approach, and maybe your particular approach is using SAFe. So we take these hexes, and this is like a structural view of the content. More dynamic view is this is a new diagram for us. As I mentioned, we're integrating Al's content from Flex with Disciplined Agile, and the hexes come from Disciplined Agile, and the flow comes from Flex. And this is how they come together. So what we can do is we can find bottlenecks in the process as you flow value to customers using something like SAFe, and then use practices from the toolkit to help you remove those bottlenecks. That's essentially what this is all about. And there's a whole course being developed on this that's going to be available next month, I should say. So in summary, success doesn't come from adopting a prescriptive framework such as Scrum or SAFe, but it can be a great place to start. For true business agility, we need to choose our own Agile way of working, optimizing for your unique situation. And Disciplined Agile is a rich, comprehensive, and well-organized toolkit of strategies to help your organization be more successful with Agile. It brings a disciplined and very important agnostic approach. We don't care what type of Agile you use. It might be something you invented yourself. It's professional, and it's an enterprise approach to Agile, which is what our industry has been lacking in the past. And understanding what your options are and which ones work in different contexts leads to better decisions. And at this point, I was going to ask you the poll, but because I don't seem to understand how this works, I've already asked you before, and let's see what you said. Most of you said that, those of you who answered, frankly, which is about half of them, said that you agree that we need to raise expectations regarding our what education is required to be effective with Agile. And you know, I would say to you, that's kind of common sense, right? The more skills we have, the more effective we are. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir, if you will. You folks, because you've made an investment in education, understand its importance. And I'm on a mission now as part of PMI to spread that word to the Agile world. It's time for us to raise the bar. It's time to be more professional. 2-day certification requires no test. It is just embarrassing, to be honest with you. We really are being unfair to our stakeholders. They trust us with these large investments. You know what? I see people who have taken a 2-day class with this particular method I won't name, and they know nothing. They've never managed a project. They know nothing about risk management. And then we trust them with a few million euros to do something, and we wonder why bad things happen. So that's where we're coming from here. We need a more rigorous approach to training and certification. So on that note, just the last few slides I'm going to cover here is what you see here is an articulation of the 4 Agile offerings that are now part of PMI. This PMI has gone from, a certification, which is very good, the ACP certification, just to a much more robust set of offerings that actually can help you grow on the Agile side throughout your career. You're going to see we're coming out with a certification journey that's going to depict how you can sort of move along with Agile as you progress throughout your career. The top left part in this quadrant is Brightline. It's not really about DA. It's about large-scale, fundamental business transformations, and that's what the Brightline Compass is all about. It's the other 3 quadrants you see here that are in the DA wheelhouse, if you will. Top right, fundamentally, we've got to upskill our teams. We need to increase, as I said, raise the bar and increase the education in the team beyond a 2-day class. Bottom left is how do we spread agility throughout the organization, just way beyond our Scrum teams. The rest of the organization needs to be agile as well. And what we have here is a certification called Disciplined Agile being Scrum Master. That is between 2 and 4 days of training. If you don't have any agile experience or training, you take 4 days. If you've got some agile experience or training, you take the last 2 days. And then you need to study the book because it's more than 19 pages, it's 400 pages. And then you take a challenging test, and that's how you get the Disciplined Agile being Scrum Master certification. And that equips your team to actually be much more effective. That's how you optimize teams. For the transformation, the coaching cert teaches us about change management, lean change management. So now that you understand what's in the toolkit, you can now spread agility, sprinkle it up, or bubble it up, I think is probably a better term, into the organization. And that's what the coach cert teaches you. And then what's coming is a value stream consultant certification for Al's content on how you improve Agile at scale if you're using something like SAFe. All right, so those are the 3 course certifications. And the courseware has been designed to be delivered virtually. We're actually ahead of the COVID. We already had this early this year. All our courses can be taught virtually. And what you see here is actually a course being taught about a month ago. Really cool, a lot of fun. I designed our original courses with Scott, but I haven't done the recent updates, and the recent updates include the virtualization. And we're using Miro here, and I didn't design it, but I attended one of the classes to see how it works, and it was so much fun. Like these hexes you see at the bottom, everybody has a cursor that has their name on it as you drag it around the screen, and everybody's moving these hexes around at the same time as part of an exercise. I actually think the virtual course is more fun than face-to-face. But you take whichever one you think is, so you can attend same class, but it can be taught virtually, it can be taught face-to-face. And we're also coming out with a DA for SAFe in course in July. And you may have heard that there is an on-demand version of the basics of Disciplined Agile. If you're not ready to commit to a longer workshop, I think it's $180. It might be, it's discounted right now. And what it is it doesn't qualify for certification, but I believe it's 10 PDUs, might be 14, 10 or 14 PDUs. And it gives you a little bit more information about what I've been talking about, but it actually takes you through scenarios. So you can actually, because it's like, I understand what Mark is saying, I get it, but I'm not really sure how to actually do this. This course actually takes you through. So you can try this, try that, see what happens when you try different techniques. It gives you a better feeling for how to use Disciplined Agile. but it's not the basis for certification. It's meant to be able to give you more information before you decide to go to a course. So I encourage you to check that out. The Choose Your WoW book, it has been updated for PMI. The old version used to look like this, but the new version looks like that. And it's available on Amazon. I understand they've taken down the PMI bookstore for now because the shipping charges were too high, and they're trying to fix that before they launch it again. But you can get it on Amazon or Kindle. And if you're a PMI member, you can download the book for free. That's one of your membership benefits. Okay, so there's your whirlwind tour of what DA is all about. And how did I do for time? Ooh, actually, I'm bang on time, even a few minutes early. So quite happy to answer any questions you have. I hope this has been useful for you. And I don't know if somebody wants to facilitate this or if you want me to check it. I can check the chat. Put your questions into the chat room.
Hi, Mark. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this inspirational and by all means insightful presentation. Now, there are some interesting questions posed here in the chat. I would like to open this Q&A session by the question, for example, okay, I guess that most of us have some agile experience. Some of us, maybe many of us have some agile certification, some Scrum Safe. Now, somebody who already has some agile education certification and accepting a Disciplined Agile, how do you see the change of mindset of the people, or people that needs to happen in adopting Disciplined Agile? Have you seen that in people transferring from, I don't know, one Agile to Disciplined Agile?
Yes, we have. And first of all, it starts with awareness that, you know, if I've taken a Scrum Master class, it's a 2-day class to cover 19 pages of material. So it's good. It's a great start. But anybody who's actually done this recognizes, if they're honest with themselves, that they don't know everything there is to know about Agile. And as a result, what happens, folks, is that there's another presentation I used to do where, another slide that was in this presentation, I should say, where I used to say how Agile is actually devolved into chaos. And what I mean by that is that 2001, the Agile Manifesto was written, and we all believe in those statements, we all believe in those principles, but it's a very small piece of, mindset. And then what everybody did is they interpreted it in their own way. So you had different methods. Prior to the Agile Manifesto, by the way, we had Scrum, we had extreme programming, and those two methods agreed with everything in the Agile Manifesto. But then since 2001, when it was written, you've got all these other methods that are coming out and pieces of the puzzle. And by the way, they're good pieces. For instance, Jürgen Appello, if you've heard of him, has some great stuff on modern management, Agile management, called Agile Management 3.0. Beautiful stuff. And we've taken some of those things and we put them into Disciplined Agile. But so now there's a certification for Management 3.0. And Kneffen, if you've heard of that, with complexity theory from Dave Snowden, some great stuff about complexity theory, but there's a certification for that. And so as a result, and then there's SAFe, and then there's Professional Scrum Master. And as a result, us poor consultants have to have a dozen certifications on our LinkedIn profile to cover everything, because they're all just little pieces of the puzzle. Nothing is sort of that umbrella in the wind. And that's what we've done. And by the way, with those different methods, there's a lot of overlap. So you end up going to all these certifications and going, yeah, I've heard about the Agile Manifesto for the 10th time. You don't need to hear about this anymore. So imagine if you could take out all the duplication and you could consolidate all these things into one cohesive toolkit. Then you can learn a ton in one place. And so to answer your question, it's those people who've taken some other certifications who say, you know what, you could get all of this, one body of knowledge with one certification. So we are seeing people start to do that. And and the other thing I want to say, I know it's a long answer, but it's important. It's really important that you understand this. Is that if you heard of Gartner Group, the research company, they absolutely love DA, but Gartner Group does not promote. That's not their job. Their job is you pay them for advice and then they answer questions for you. So sometimes they've told I speak with the Gartner analysts on a regular basis, and they've told me, you know, Mark, people call us up and say we've tried SAFe, it's not really for us, or it's good, but we have these other things where SAFe doesn't make sense. What should we do? And Gartner goes, well, have you looked at Disciplined Agile? Because it's very broad what it can do. And they go, what do they think they say? What's Disciplined Agile? Right? So Gartner tells us this is you guys really need to improve your marketing because you got good stuff, but nobody knows about you. And so that this is one of the reasons we joined PMI. Now we have 300 chapters around the world. I'm speaking to you. I spoke at a conference in Naples, Italy, where the word is really getting out, and people really love what they hear because it just makes sense. It's agnostic, and we think that the future for EA within PMI is extremely bright. We just got to get the word out there, and it's going to take some time.
Mark, thank you very much for this answer. I would now like to ask some questions that came through chat. One that is quite is where in the organizational level the way of working is captured. Does each team choose its own way of working, and the organization is another, or is it somehow imposed top down, bottom up?
A little bit of both. That's a really, really good question. You know, Agile tells us the team should be self-organizing. The team should own the process. They best know what adds value, what doesn't add value, so they can strip out waste, maybe add things that aren't dictated from above. They own the process. That's what Agile says. But we're disciplined Agile. And there's two different aspects of the discipline, but one of them is we are enterprise aware. And what that says is we're not just one little Scrum team in a room who's in the room building software. We're a set of teams, and we work within a large organization like Nike or whatever it is. So we need to have that enterprise top-down discipline for the teams.
Somebody, please mute your microphones. There's some noise.
Yeah, somebody's not on mute, and you can scroll through and see who isn't. Okay, noise has gone away. Please mute yourselves. So what we say is self-organizing within enterprise constraints. So as an example, your enterprise architecture group might insist all code needs to be reviewed by a second person or maybe another team before it gets into production. Another example, all code must be run through a security scan to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities. There's an example of where if you had pure self-organization and there's nobody top down saying that is our standard, guess what? Some teams will, some teams won't. And this is how we have data leaks and bad things happen. And by the way, this is why we have an architecture owner. Because the architecture owner's responsibility is to understand what those standards are. So anything that does come top down, they need to know what that is. So they make sure that we go, hey team, we can't put this into production. We haven't run a security scan yet. So do you see how this is a more disciplined way of doing things? And this is why when organizations understand they've got that level of discipline within Agile, they really like it. But we got to get this local. So it's a combination of both, is what I'm saying. A bit of top down and self-organization.
Marisa Quiros, please, can you mute your microphone? It's you that noise is coming from.
I can mute it now. And,
thank you.
Okay, done.
Thank you, Mark. There is another question that connects to this one. Very nice. Now, do you know the proportion of missed opportunities if an organization only adopts Agile on the low levels, on the teams, but not on the upper level of governance, management? How does that function? And can it actually work?
it can work, but it usually doesn't. What we often find is that if you don't have, well, it's important to try to get executive support. And then, because what often happens is a middle manager, calls us up before we join PMI. We would do consulting services as well, right? And they call us up and ask us to train their teams on Scrum and VA and stuff. And they were all excited, but then they found out that they would go to enterprise architecture, or enterprise architecture will come to them to say, wait a second, don't do anything until you give us a complete architectural blueprint to the entire system that you're going to build for the next 2 years. And then the Agile team comes to me and says, we're not allowed to start. We have to spend the next month or two creating architectural blueprint diagrams. So this is where Agile often fails and people give up. And they end up doing things dictated from above because the people above haven't been educated on a different way of working that's more agile. And I always say, the Agile teams tend to then look up to those groups, the PMO, the data group, release management, enterprise architecture. They look up to them with disdain and say, they don't get it. They're not good, right? Well, that's not it. It's not their fault. The fault is nobody's taken the time to educate them. Because you know what? Once they learn a more agile way to do enterprise architecture, they're actually happier themselves. And they're very reasonable. But nobody has taken the time to educate them on new ways of working with the agile teams. And this is what a certified disciplined agile coach can help do. So I think about my own experiences with working with insurance companies, working with a company called Panera Bread in the US, a big pizza company called Papa John's. Every single time I would spend time with those other groups and teach them new ways of working. And I promise you, we have case studies on this, that they are so much happier than they were prior to Agile coming in. Because you know what? There's a lot of things that those groups do up there in other parts of the organization that aren't Agile, and they don't enjoy them. They think that, why do I have to have all this big template to fill out? Knowing, even though it's their own template, they know it's not really adding value. So it's really important. And what we do, what we recommend is, for you folks, if you want to do this and you don't have experience with Disciplined Agile, I recommend get trained. And if you feel like you don't have the ability to go in and work with the rest of the organization to make it more agile, then find a DA partner that can help you. Because there are companies around the world who do get this stuff and have helped other organizations like yours do this. So they know, they're Disciplined Agile coaches. They know how to have the conversations with those other groups to help you collectively all be happier and more agile. So get some help is what I would recommend.
Thank you, Mark. We started with your help this evening. So now adopt Agile, Disciplined Agile, and going into continuous improvement. How would you define key performance metrics? How would we actually see the rate of improvement?
Great question. Metrics is a difficult topic, and not impossible, but it's a difficult topic. And I'll tell you why. It's because I often get the question, Mark, can you tell me this company XYZ, what percentage improvement did they achieve? Show me the metrics. Well, I can't in many cases. And you know why? It's because they didn't have a baseline. They had no way of measuring how effective they were before Disciplined Agile. So if you don't have a start, how can you measure a delta? How can you measure an improvement? So this is the fundamental problem. Everybody's asking for a 25% improvement or whatever it is. But having said that, there are ways this can be done as long as you put in some measurements at the beginning, not at the end, but at the beginning of your DA adoption. I'll give you an example. There was a company that said to me, the CIO talked to me, and this is prior to PMI when I was a coach. They said, Mark, I need you to come in and do what you did for me at another company. And I said, okay, Mike, where's your pain? What does it hurt? And he goes, my teams aren't dependable. They say this will take 3 months and it never does. It takes 6 months. And I trust them. So if they tell me 3 months, I go to the board and I make this promise and then it never happens. And then I get into trouble. So I've got 20 teams and none of them I can count on. they're not dependable. So boom, message received. Guess what I did? Right from the beginning. First of all, train them on DA. That's value proposition number one. Teach them what's in the toolkit so that they can improve better themselves when I'm not around. And what I said is, okay, these teams are going to use Scrum, and then what we'll do is we'll measure whether or not they were successful at the end of every sprint in terms of meeting their sprint goals for the business. And by the way, the business decides whether or not they met the goal or not them. So, and it's binary. They either did or they didn't. So for 20 teams, everybody at the end of every sprint got a thumbs up or a thumbs down in terms of whether they met the sprint goals. And we track that for the 20 teams as a basic number and as well as a moving average. So you can imagine results initially a lot of red. We had reds and greens, a lot of reds. And what I said to them, that's okay, we're learning. But over time, what we do is we have retrospectives, the guided continuous improvement to say we didn't meet our commitment. How can we do better? This is where DA comes in. Well, let's pull out, we misinterpreted the requirements. Well, let's go to explore scope and pick some different modeling techniques to make sure that we get clarity on the requirements. And by doing those things, guess what? They started to meet their commitments and the red started to turn green. And by the way, those metrics are transparent for everybody. We weren't trying to make different teams look bad, but we were trying to encourage everybody to, hey, this team over here is getting better. Maybe I can learn about what they're doing because we need to get better as well. And there's not, and a message to you all, if you're doing this, always capture the data when the data is bad. Okay? You're not blaming anybody, but that's how you feel better because you go from bad to better. Don't wait until things are good and start to capture metrics. That's not the way to do it. Okay. So you can do it. You can do it. And one last point is we have a course on lean governance, a one-day course. And this is where we teach people how to actually pick metrics that make sense for them. Because I'll give you an example. There's an online betting company in the UK called William Hill. They're training 900 people right now. Everybody is getting the DA training. And they are picking metrics that make sense for them that they learned about in their lean governance DA course. Okay, next question.
Thank you very much, Mark. We have questions coming, but I'm afraid that we will not have enough time to address all of them. So I believe that we have now enough information that you have teased us enough that we search for DA information more on ourselves. And now I would like to thank you for this really wonderful, really inspirational presentation and all the information that we have. And also hope that you have enjoyed this with us as much as we have enjoyed with you. Now I would like to turn to Stefan for some closing remarks. Stefan?
Okay. And before you do, I'll just say thank you very much for having me. And I'd love to come back again if you want to take a deeper dive or maybe do a different topic. I'd be quite happy to do so. And when this whole crisis thing is over, I hope that I can actually come see you face to face. All right, thank you.
Hope very much. We hope so to have you as a guest here in Switzerland with us. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Stefan?
Maybe I need to unmute everybody.
No, I can. I have. If I unmute, it's working.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark, for your. Thank you, Mark, for your promise to come to Switzerland next year. Great to hear this. And also a big thank you for your time today evening for us and today morning for you. Thanks for this intro into this very current topic and this future topic, as I think, digital DA, Disciplined Agile. Thank you. And also, again, a big thank you to Nicola and his team who organized this online event for us. And I hope you enjoyed all this session. You have a good learning, and now you are keen to get your courses in Disciplined Agile. A special thank you to all our friends in France, in Greece, in Serbia, in Germany, in Croatia, in US, and in the UK who is joining us this evening. Thank you for being with us. I want quickly to point out our next events in Switzerland, our next virtual events. We want to have a session about how to communicate better in virtual project teams, because communication is key, and we all know communication in a virtual environment is slightly different from live environment. So we will give you some tips about how you can improve the communication. And then, let me say the last event before our Swiss vacation time, Peter Taylor will tell us why he thinks project management it's bollock. And I think it is bollocks, or is it not? Let's see what Peter tells us. I would be happy to welcome you in this event. And now we're coming to the end, Nicola. Everyone who joined this evening, next slide. Everyone who joined this evening and is PMI member, please note this PTU claim code. Go to your CRS address and enter this code. Then you will get this one PTU for this joining this session. And my last plea to everyone who's joined this evening is, please give us your feedback. We know always improvement is the best that we can do. So please tell us where we can improve. Tell us what we did very well. Take this 5 minutes or 2 minutes to go to the page and give us a feedback in our survey. You will also get the survey link in a mail that you receive in the next 3 days. And the link is already in the mail with the link for this event that you received at 2 hours ago. So finally, I wish everyone a good night. I give the last word to my boss, Agatha. See you soon again. Bye-bye.
Just a really, really big thank you for all the participants. I mean, I hope you manage it somehow, even through the WebEx and with a bit of, tight rules about muting yourself. But yeah, and for Mark, yeah, great presentation. Really something that I think we needed. There was some, people were talking about how we couldn't have a better source. Honestly, the best source we could have of Disciplined Agile. So big thank you, and hope to see you somewhere in the world. Finally. Have a good evening, all Europe, and yeah, still good day, US, Canada, that part. Ciao.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone, and thank you for participating.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.